Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I'm back. Gonna be back. So want to go ahead and hit on something a little bit interesting that I saw here on a Monday. And listen, Monday's kind of a fun time of the week because obviously the college football weekend is done. We spent all day Saturday, Sunday, early Monday reacting to it. It's a little early to look ahead to the following weekend, but I bring it up because, listen, we talk a ton of college football on this channel, but here is the crazy part. As I record here, it is Monday, October 7th, which means this. We are now, count them, 4 weeks away from the start of college basketball season. I cannot believe that we are here. And I bring it up because the season is coming. I am so excited. There are just so many interesting storylines. But I'll say this, along with UConn going for a third straight national championship, nothing more interesting than what's going on in Lexington, Kentucky, where we have a new coaching regime for the first time since the 2009-2010 season. By now, you've probably heard Mark Pope is the new head coach, and it was crazy, right? Sunday, I was traveling. You can probably see the little hotel backdrop behind me. But Sunday I was traveling, and it was pretty cool. I got a chance to just catch up on some stuff that I've missed throughout the week. And one thing that I did get a chance to listen to was Mark Pope actually to sit down with my buddies, Sean Smith and Jack Pilgrim, KSR, and the Sources Say podcast. And so Mark Pope, it was a wide-ranging interview. But he said something in that interview that I wanted to react to here, because in an offseason where everything was moving a million miles an hour, now we're a month away from the start of the season. He said something to me that I think that should have every Kentucky fan fired up. And it's wild, right? Because we're going into a season where there's a lot of, just new faces everywhere, the coaching staff, the roster, the this, the that. But I think for the first time in a long time, there's no, I would say, frankly, realistic expectations nationally of Kentucky. Now, I think they're better than a lot of people think they are. I see some people, they're a fringe tournament team. They're a 7, 8, 9, whatever. I think this team has a chance to be really good. I have said it since June when this roster got finalized. But I want to react to something that Mark Pope did say in that interview because I think it speaks to me that we are headed towards a world where we are going to see a different type of Kentucky team, but also one that I think is going to surprise some people once these games tip off here in just a few weeks. So let's go ahead and get into the quote. It was actually on Jackson Robinson. Okay, so Jackson Robinson is the fifth-year senior, was BYU's best player last season, the only player that followed Mark Pope from BYU to Kentucky. And I think you can tell by listening to Mark Pope talk about Jackson Robinson how excited he is about this player, but in turn, how excited he is about this team. Going to read the full quote. It's a little bit long, but I think from there you'll get some perspective. We'll talk about the parts of the quote because I think there's a lot to peel back from one, 30 to 60 second quote. So here is Mark Pope talking about Jackson Robinson, the transfer from BYU who averaged 14.5 points per game, was their leading scorer a year ago. Again, the only player to follow Mark Pope to Kentucky. Here's what Mark Pope said. I'm proud of Jackson. One, Jackson probably would have been a second-round pick this year, probably would have been right there this year. And he's like, nope, I want to come back and be the best player I can be before I make a jump to the league. And he's like, I want to come to Kentucky. Who wouldn't? He continued, this is Pope on Jackson Robinson. We started the fall semester. We went on a service trip to Eastern Kentucky. And on the last day of the service, the guys had done an unbelievable job, unbelievable work. The last morning we had a devotional, and each of the guys took a turn and talked about what they wanted to contribute to the team. Just one thing, one very specific thing they wanted to contribute. And I'll never forget, Jax was great. Jax said, what I want to contribute to this team, I want to be a great translator for this team. And that's where his mind is. He's been with us for 2 years now. He's the only guy on this roster I've ever coached. So he said, I know stuff is coming fast. I know there's a lot of new ways to think about the game. He's like, I want to do an unbelievable job translating for why this to this team, why we do things, why they work, and why we believe in them. Mark Pope concluded on Jackson Robinson saying he's cold-blooded, never rattled by the moment, and he'll make ridiculously big shots in big moments, but he's also always about making the right play. A little bit of a long quote, but let me tell you this. If that does not have you excited about your star player if you're Kentucky, let alone the entire team that Mark Pope has put together, folks, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. This team's going to be so much better than people realize. I am so excited to see them take the floor. A couple thoughts on the quote. First off, the first part, the part where he said Jackson probably would have been a second-round pick this year, probably would have been right there. He's like, nope, I want to come back, be the best player I can be. And he's like, I want to do it at Kentucky. What I could tell you, obviously, that was a recruitment and a situation that I followed closely in the spring. I can confirm pretty much everything that Mark Pope said, right? So first of all, I think we can dismiss this idea. I've heard a lot of, well, Kentucky doesn't have any NBA players on this team. Really? Pretty sure Jackson Robinson would have been drafted had he stayed in the draft last year. But to his credit, he wanted to come back. He wanted to be the best version of himself as Pope would be. I think NIL certainly hopes, don't have any idea what the dollar figure is, but he's not making nothing like in the old days. And so I think that does matter. But he is an NBA player, in my opinion. He is going to be better than people realize. I know a lot of other SEC fan bases remember him from when he was younger, hadn't really developed into the player that he is now. I'm just here to tell you he's going to be really good. And what Pope also said, I can confirm as well. I know there was a lot of talk about, could it be Kansas? Could it be another school? Would he return to BYU? I think there was a half a second where he met with that new coaching staff, Kevin Young. They've done a great job. But if he was coming back, it was to play for Mark Pope. So if you're a Kentucky fan, that's also got to make you feel good. It's like the best player on that team believes in Mark Pope. An NBA player believes in Mark Pope, believes in the vision that he has laid out. What I really love, though, is the part about being a translator. And this, to me, is the really important part of the quote. I think maybe the most important part. He said, wants to be a translator. He said, I want to do an unbelievable job of translating for this team why we do things, why they work, and why we believe in them. So one, that's just incredible from a coach's perspective because, heck, entirely new roster otherwise, frankly, largely a new coaching staff. So all the pieces are trying to get figured out. So it is great for Kentucky that you have a guy on your roster that frankly just has been through the wars, knows what it's about, and can communicate that to other guys on the team. Before we do, I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Aaron Torres pod, Blue Chew. Fellas, remember back in the day when you were always ready to go? Well, things change. You got a lot on your mind. Your football team isn't very good. Well, here's the good news. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No awkward trip to the doctors, no waiting at the pharmacy, no stink eyes, no raised eyebrows, nothing. Thing is, though, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Torres, does it actually work? Do you think I need to try it? Well, here's the deal. Try it for a month for free, and I think there will be no turning back, all right? You'll love it. Your partner is going to love it. Your football team may stink, but you'll be rocking like the 85 Bears between the sheets. So go ahead, try it out, and here is the great news. We have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. You can try Blue Chew for free when you use the code Torres at checkout. All you got to do is pay $5 in shipping. Go to bluechew.com, use promo code Torres at checkout. You get Blue Chew for free for a free month, and you only have to pay $5 shipping. Again, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the Aaron Torres podcast. To me, though, it speaks louder to what type of team Kentucky is going to have this year, okay? And the one thing that I don't want to do in this situation is I think it's easy to tear down the previous staff, how rosters were constructed, why they were constructed the way they were, whatever. That's not what I'm going to do. Most of you know I'm a Cal supporter. I think it's going to be good for him to have a fresh start at Arkansas. I think he's going to do well there. I don't know what well is. I don't know for how long. He's in his 60s now. I think he's going to do well. We know why he built rosters the way that he did. But I also think that Mark Pope coming in and putting together this specific roster at this specific time is just a great thing for Kentucky. Because at the end of the day, one thing that I do understand the frustration of UK fans about with the previous coaching staff and the previous regime was this idea that you had to wait until January, February, March to figure things out. And fans were like, wait a second now. Duke gets to be good in November, and Kansas and UConn and North Carolina and whoever get to be good in November. We got to wait till January or February? Like, what are we talking about here? And so with this team, you're going to see a team that I think from the beginning, older, mature, talented, which we'll get into in a minute. But I don't think this is going to be like they don't figure themselves out till February. Now, maybe they tinker with starting lineups, maybe different guys in different roles as the season goes on. That's every team in America. Happened at UConn last year, and UConn was the best team in the country. But this idea that you're going to have to wait until January, no. This is a mature group, and I think they're going to come out early and establish themselves early. Again, just a group that has been through the wars, has done it. I've told you about Lamont Butler. You know, I've followed that kid's career since he's 14, 15 years old in Southern California, Riverside Poly High School, same as Reggie Miller. He's a really mature, but also not only talented, but he's also a very mature kid. Jackson Robinson is the same. Kobe Brea is the same. Andrew Carr is the same. Amari Williams is the same. I could go on and on. Finally, let me just say this is, again, it goes back to what I just said a second ago, but what I also said to lead this segment is that when I look at this team and this roster, I just think it's better than people think, man. And listen, I'm not in the business of criticizing other media members. I try to stay away from that. We all have opinions. We all get stuff right. We all get stuff wrong. I, more than anybody, get plenty wrong. But I've seen this stuff about Kentucky's not a top 25 team. Kentucky might not be a tournament team. They're a fringe tournament team. They're this, they're that. They're seventh or eighth best in the SEC. Listen, the SEC is really good. I'm not trying to take away from Tennessee or Ole Miss or Alabama or Auburn or Arkansas or whoever. But I also think people are completely underselling this team. Let's take the Kentucky logo off of the players on this roster, okay? And we talked about this in June when the roster came together. But let's just take the Kentucky logo away. If I told you, now listen, in a perfect world, and Pope talked about this in the interview, you don't want 0 players that have ever played together. In a perfect world, you know, every year you're going to have 4 or 5 guys that are holdovers that can kind of teach the system to the younger guys. To use Jackson Robinson's terms, you're going to have more translators on the roster than this year. But if you have to put together a team through the portal and take away the Kentucky element of it, let me just give you some parameters of a team, and you tell me if you think that team is at least a top 25 team, if not a team that could finish, you know, kind of in the conversation towards the top of a power conference like the SEC. You have 13 new, 13 new players, whatever it is, okay? 4 of those players averaged double figures in the power conference last year. Forget names, forget jerseys, whatever. Power conference, 4 players averaged double figures. It's a pretty good place to start. Oh, by the way, you statistically have the best three-point shooter in college basketball a year ago. I know Reed Shepherd had higher percentages, but, you know, we know how the stats work and the numbers weren't as high because he didn't take as many shots, whatever. You have 4 guys who average double figures. Outside of that, you have the best three-point shooter in the portal. Oh, by the way, chose this school over UNC, UConn, Duke, and Kansas. I would assume that's a pretty good player, right? You have the best defensive guard in the portal. Forget what school, where he came from, how tall, how short, how the best defensive guard in the portal. Oh, and you have the best defensive big guy in the portal. Don't care how tall, how short, you know, where he came from. A 3-time conference defensive player of the year. Just tell me that roster doesn't sound really good on paper. That's exactly who Kentucky has. 4 guys who averaged double figures in the power conferences last year. Jackson Robinson at BYU, Kirk Reese at West Virginia, Andrew Carr at Wake Forest, Otega Oweh at Oklahoma. You have Kobe Brea, 49.8% three-point shooter for a tournament team at Dayton. Also, the best defensive guard in college basketball, Lamont Butler. Don't even think it's a debate. He was the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year as a guard. You know how good you have to be to do that. And then also Amari Williams, who was 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in his league. So I could go on and on. I won't. But I think that quote to me, the whole interview was great. Encourage you to check it out. I'm sure many of you, if not most of you, have. Jack and Sean did a great job with that interview. By the way, Pope also mentioned that Travis Perry, freshman, this was blew my mind. He said that Travis Perry, the freshman, hit 100 straight free throws 3 straight days. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. What is that? That doesn't seem possible. Anyway, listen, it's a Monday. It's October. We're almost to college hoop season. I'm clearly fired up. And by the sounds of things, Mark Pope is as well. Do me a quick favor. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you're subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod. We're talking a lot of college football. But oh, by the way, college hoops is coming. We're under a month. So fired up. Cannot wait. Make sure you're following our Torres on UK Twitter account. If you're on Twitter, all things Kentucky all the time. Great intern helping me run that page. And then finally, season's about to start. Get your Hope and Pope tee at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Mark Pope is excited. You should be too. I know that I am.